Welcome, one and all. I hope that you are having a very happy Halloween. I just wanted to let you know that I am going to be telling you a story. Now, if that isn't very new, I apologize, but the difference is that this is a story not written only by myself, but rather written by myself and a friend. It should teach you a very important lesson about tonight. And so, enjoy the tale and be wary. The sound of heavy metal music blared through the car, accompanied by the sultry chorus that spewed from our throats and out the open window, dispersing in the cold night air, unheard by anybody other than the three of us. In the back sat my companions, Steve and David, the former happily joining me in the unearthly wail of voice, and the latter trying and failing to suppress the twitching of his left eye as he was forced to listen to our horrific singing. After several minutes of this, the song came to an end, and I turned the music down. As I turned the volume knob, I noticed the little red needle dangerously close to empty. I called back to my two passengers. "I'm gonna have to stop at the next gas station. Could one of you pull up a map?" "Yeah," David grumbled as he slipped his beat-up iPhone out of his pocket. "There should be one about a mile down this road." "Oh, come on!" he groaned as an older version of Siri told him that he had no connection through a tinny speaker. Steve spoke up from the back. "Why are we even taking this road? There's nothing here." "Exactly. There's nothing here and nobody takes this road because of it, meaning no traffic." "Well, let's at least stop inside the gas station before we continue. I'd like to have some kind of connection with humanity before we keep going." I continued to drive down, looking for the gas station, keeping an anxious eye on the steadily declining gas dial, watching it get closer and closer to the possibility of us having to push this hunk of junk we were riding for the miles and miles into the next settlement. I felt an inexplicable shiver run up my spine as I looked out into the inky blackness surrounding us. No moon or stars breaking up the ocean of black around us, our world solely being the two beams of yellow light illuminating the broken-up road in front of us. Thankfully, the desert sands slowly became illuminated by the light from an ancient-looking gas station that came into view, its gravel parking lot filled to the brim with dark cars. Our tires crunched and ground the gravel beneath them as we pulled in, maneuvering through the minefield of abandoned automobiles before we all stomped on top of each other to get out of the claustrophobic case we've been trapped in for the last 3 hours. I stretched and looked around at the cars filling the parking lot. Not a single one of them had a person inside. I felt another weird shiver. Where was everyone? The opaque glass door swung open with an unnerving screech as David shoved it and made his way to the bathroom at the back of the small store, while Steve wandered through the shelves sparsely laden with snacks and knickknacks. The walls were painted a dull beige, with water stains everywhere, though it was hard to see it in the dim, flickering light provided by the overhead bulbs. The heavy scent of mold hung in the air like a fog. It seemed like the place would collapse on itself at any moment. I didn't even realize there was another human soul in the building until I heard a tired sigh off to my left, at which point I found a blank-faced teenage boy wearing a faded green uniform sitting behind the counter, rolling around marbles with his fingertip lazily on the counter's cracked and faded surface. He seemed bored, but his shoulders were bunched up as if he was stressed. He didn't quite look right. "Should I call a coroner? You look dead on your feet, kid," I commented as I watched one of the marbles slip off the edge of the counter, seemingly without the teen's notice. The boy's head jerked up, his eyes wide for a brief moment before relaxing. No, it's fine. It's been a long shift, you know. More eventful than normal." "Really? How so?" I queried, settling up to his counter. Some jackass keeps knocking on that door every once in a while," he said, nodding over to the front doors we just walked through, "and running away when I go to answer it." I felt my lips twitch up. They must be really dedicated if they're willing to hang out in the middle of nowhere all night. Are you sure it's not the ghost of gas stations past or something? The kid snorted. That would be more convenient. I've been watching the CCTV all night to try and catch them doing it, but I haven't even caught a glimpse. I'm telling you, ghosts, I said with a small smirk and started staring out the window of the station myself. I didn't show it on my face, but something about this place was unnerving to me, and I couldn't wait to get out of there ASAP. The bathroom door creaked open with a horrific shriek that made me jump like a startled cat, though the attendant just continued to roll around the marbles unaffected. David stalked out and said, "Headed back out to the car. Don't take too long. Don't let Steve take too long either. I don't like being here," as he walked past me. "You got it," I called after him as he yanked open the front door and disappeared outside. We lapsed back into silence as I waited for Steve to emerge from the shop rows so we could pay and get out of there. The whole "this place is totally haunted" vibe was starting to put me on edge. Staring absentmindedly out the window, I noticed that I didn't see David walk out to our car. I waited. Still nothing. What was he doing? Just standing in front of the door? Maybe there was a snake or a lizard or something that had caught his attention. He had always been a fan of reptiles. "Hey!" I heard Steve call out, and found him stumbling back into the open, all sorts of crap stuffed under his arm. "There's something wrong with this place. I was just by that window over there, and something kept scraping against it. I can't see, it's so dark outside, but I know for a fact there aren't any trees back there." The attendant scoffed and gave a dismissive answer without looking up from his little marble game. "It's probably just our ghost prankster again. They're trying to screw with you. Or it could be the lizards that walk all over the walls outside. Just don't worry about it. It happens all the time." "Whatever it is, it's creeping me out. I'm gonna go see what's going on." Steve dumped his arm-loaded stuff onto the counter and stalked out the door, which creaked as it closed behind him. The doors in this place really needed some oiling. There was silence for a few more moments, and I realized I still didn't see David anywhere. I waited for a sign from either David or Steve that they were out there. The silence went unbroken for several minutes, and I saw nothing. I suddenly felt fear rise in me, causing my hands to start shaking like the earthquake that tore up San Francisco in 19-something. It's hard to describe why I felt sudden panic in that moment. Maybe the stress from the car ride and the general unnervingness of everything combined with the disappearances of Steve and David was just getting to me all at that one moment. The kid behind the counter didn't look up, didn't even move his head as I started to hyperventilate. He just kept rolling his marbles back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I watched and stopped. Something about the rhythmic back and forth was calming. Not soothing, but something about it made me calm down. I looked at the kid, and he stopped rolling the marble for the first time in several minutes and looked up at me. The tiredness in his face was gone. He was unnervingly expressionless, and his eyes glinted with something that seemed much bigger and much older than the adolescent in front of me. We stared at each other for several minutes, silence thick enough to cut with a plastic knife from the third aisle down. Eventually, something occurred to me that had been bothering me ever since we got there, and I dared to ask. "Why are there so many cars out front?" After a few moments, the kid smiled slightly. "That's a very good question, Terrence. Why don't you tell me?" Knock. 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 I looked at the door, keeping the kid in my peripheral vision. "Would you answer that door? Maybe our ghost joker won't bother you." Slowly and deliberately, I turned and walked to the door. I gave one glance to the kid. He had turned his attention back to his marbles, but now he was humming a cheery yet slow tune. I turned back to the door, and in one swift motion opened it with a loud creak and ran out, calling, "Hello! Hello! Is anyone there? David! Steve!" My voice faltered as an impossibly intense pain tore through my chest from the back. I looked down and saw a shiny black claw protruding from my chest before my head lolled onto my shoulder and my every muscle relaxed. My legs gave out from under me, but instead of falling onto the cracked concrete, a painful tug tore at my spine and my innards as I felt myself being pulled skyward, the world shrinking beneath me. My hands spasmed uncontrollably as something hot and wet dribbled from my lips. My wavering eyes found themselves staring at a horrendously huge, sickly white blob that sat on the roof of the gas station, one of its black appendages reaching out behind me and the other bracing against the shingles. My limbs started to thrash weakly, horror gripping me as the white blob grew closer, and its details became more defined, showing a massive, human-like face covered with flabby white flesh with two glistening beady black dots instead of eyes, and a mouth that was too long, splitting its face in half horizontally. A strangled scream gurgled out of me grotesquely as the demon's mouth opened impossibly wide, showing a dark, cavernous maw filled to the brim with tiny human teeth stained pink, hunks of red goo and fabric stuck in between them. My mind left me as I was slowly lowered into the cavern, its moist interior glistening as I desperately tried to cry out, and there was a final wet crunch. A quiet groan slipped through my lips as the darkness of sleep receded to the edges of my mind. Why was I so lethargic? It was like I was being weighed down by a backpack full of bricks. A dull pain throbbed through my head and chest, a crushing feeling as though boots were being grounded into me. A sound echoed around me, dulled as if the source was underwater, beating. My eyes flickered open, and I stared unfocused at the small lights in front of me as my mind tried to catch up with my current situation. The memories came flooding back as everything came back into focus. My heart started in shock. A gurgling groan escaped my mouth, bloody froth spilling out of my gaping jaws and splattering on the roof as terror wormed into my great, thundering heart. My grotesquely extended arms jerked as a cacophony of screams exploded into my mind, bypassing my ears entirely. It was composed of the bells of countless people, men, women, young, old, scores of all of them, all entombed inside our mind. The rolls of pale flesh that were attached to this horrendous body trembled as a gnawing settled in our stomach, pain flaring through our body as hunger tore at our insides. The terror slowly dripped out of our heart, fading from our mind entirely as the desire to feed consumed everything else. Then we heard it, the slow and steady rumble of a car engine. Our monstrous body flattened against the roof, our appendages tucking themselves under the rolls of loose skin hanging from our frame, as two beams of light split the darkness on the road. A tiny car pulled into the parking lot. The car parked, and the two humans got out and went inside. Bloodied saliva dripped from our maw in anticipation as we extended an appendage down in front of the door, ready to knock. I hope you did enjoy that tale, and I hope that it serves as a very important lesson. Be careful out there. Not everything is as it seems, especially on tonight, All Hallows Eve. You can never be sure who is going to come a-knocking. You should probably answer that, don't you think?